Hello, everyone. It's Patti here with another episode of Speaking Truth to Goodness. Today, we're finally diving deep into the realms of strategy and tactics in activism. We're unpacking the crucial differences between the two and exploring how they can effectively move the needle of progress. We discuss the emotional foundation necessary for creating strong, empowered structures of people and how our actions align with our long-term goals. Michaela shares her insights on degrowth as a crucial strategy against the demands of capitalism, and we'll explore how our human connections fuel transformative change. Strap in as we dissect the magic behind our strategic spells and tactics in today's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram. Well, hi, friends. Well, we've talked about so many things. There's been some definite themes running through all of our sessions, but when we started this, we knew that we'd want to end up at a place where we're talking about strategy and getting really serious about it and taking all these more vague ideas or conceptual things we've come up with and see how do we make that real, right? Is everyone on board with this thought? Okay.
Yeah, it makes me think that there's two parts to the question.
Well, yes, because you've often said...
No, three parts now.
Okay. You've often said, that's not a strategy, that's a tactic. And so I think for us and for the listeners, it would be good if we define those things and make sure we know which is which. Yeah. Take it away, Jerry.
So I'll take a swing at it and I'll tell you what the third part is too. And he takes a deep sigh. I think we're not, in my experience over a very long period of time, we're pretty good at responding to things. We're pretty good at knowing what we need to stand up for, what we need to stand up against. But how we plan to win is not always as clear as it should be. And there's no quick victories.
But is there a win? Like, is there a moment where we're like, great, we're done? Because I kind of am like trying to teach myself that's not how that's going to be.
In a word, no.
Yeah. Okay.
So here, it's both simple and complicated. I think it's both things. I think the circumstance is always changing. So an appropriate strategy now might not be an appropriate strategy a week from Friday because conditions will change. So we might need to be flexible in how we understand our strategies. So a strategy is one, knowing what specific thing we want to accomplish, as well as a general overthrow of capitalism and the restoration of peace, justice, and goodness. So I think there are intermediate strategies and long-term strategies. I'm more concerned about the long-term strategies because I'm concerned about how we stay in this work for a lifetime, as opposed to, for Larry Kleiman says, like white people are on loan to the movement for 5 years. And that's sometimes true. I don't want that to be true. So if you can lay out your goals, what you actually want to achieve in the short range, mid-range, long range, and then you can say, what leads us, how will we win this? How will we achieve this goal? Knowing that it's going to change and mutate along the way. Unless you know that, your energy is going to be at least partly wasted because it's not going to go in a direction. It's going to feel good, it's going to be righteous, and anytime you stand up and take a stand, that's a good thing, period. But if you want to win, you have to think about it. So I haven't been part of the Zenith strategy, but we've had a Zenith strategy. I don't know how comprehensive it is, how to deal with the CEI, whatever that stands for. Isn't that
Critical Energy Infrastructure Hub. Yep.
Critical Energy Infrastructure. That sounds great. Oh, wait. It's not.
Oil. It means oil.
Right. Dressed it up.
So So in my mind, the clearer you are about what you want to accomplish, then you have to analyze where are the pressure points, and then what can we do? Those would be the tactics that would lead most efficiently and directly to what we want. I think just in the year that I've been involved in, we sometimes raise the question of, we love to do support work with other organizations, but what support work furthers our goals? I mean, we obviously can't be all things to all people. We can try, but that's not even a tactic. It's an invitation to disaster. So that's my basic thinking is, what do you want to accomplish? What are the leverage points? Who can actually make this happen? How do you apply pressure to those people? How do you at the same time involve other people in the struggle? So it moves two ways. I mean, there's a strategy, and then there's the base building to support it. The third thing that, besides strategy and tactics, I don't really have a word for, it's what's the emotional basis for creating a structure that's sustainable. How do we create people that are flexible, fierce, and yet smart with that fierceness? Like, fierce isn't even a tactic. Fierce is a great quality. I believe in fierce. But it has to have a structure around it to make it actually accomplish something. So that's my blah, 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 blah about strategy and tactics. That's why I hit the table. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah, and I think my first thought is that with regard to Zenith, XR's campaign against it, we haven't had what you might call a long-term strategy beyond shutting them down, and we haven't succeeded. So our shorter-term strategy has not been adequate either.
Right.
So I think we need, and that's why my bent going into the retreat, and I didn't see anybody else say this in the responses to our questions, is that we need to do a deep analysis of our strategy, our grand strategy, and tactics.
Right.
Several people have said that they think we need to be more disruptive. That's a tactical thing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's exciting, Michaela.
It is exciting.
I think it's very difficult. You know, there's that beautiful literary phrase, the fierce urgency of now. I mean, that's a very compelling way. And is the urgency fierce? And yes, it is. But it can't be won in the short term. Even if there isn't a long term, you have to have a long-term strategy because it has to grow. And now I'm getting all worked up again. It has to be organic. And I think XR is good that it's not rife with sectarian strife and sort of like these struggles over I don't know what that I've been around for a very, very long time. But we don't do the deep reflection. And a deep reflection seems like a luxury, but I don't think it is. I think it's, without it, we're on a hamster wheel of love, care, and urgency.
Yeah, as an organization, what I've observed over the last couple of years is that we're too caught up in doing an action, doing the next action, and we're not reflecting nearly enough in between about, well, how effective was the last one? What do we have to do different? And those questions keep coming up.
They're on the whiteboard.
Yeah,
we write them down.
Yeah, and and we pay attention to them, particularly if we have a retreat, which we'll do. But we keep doing the same thing because it's tough to think of how to be effective. I think in the realm of a grand strategy, the kind of thing where you're talking about long term, and what I think of is that's when it meets the vision. what the world that we want to create, you know.
Absolutely.
So, and I have started talking about degrowth with you and others in XR. It's not catching on. I'm the only one that mentioned it in response to the retreat question. But what it means is understanding that if we don't get rid of fossil fuels and all the other elements that are warming the planet, we're not going to survive. And what's at the basis, what's behind the continued use of all those pollutants is capitalism and profiteering and growth. The capitalist think we have to keep growing. If we want to keep making money, more and more money, we have to keep growing. And growing means more extraction of the Earth's resources, more pollution, more people dying, more extreme weather events. That's, you know, we have taxed out the Earth already.
Right.
And if we don't reverse the economic engine so that we're using much fewer resources, we're not extracting nearly as much, we're not poisoning nearly as much as we are. If we don't turn that around now, the jig is up.
And turning it around it's not a fast U-turn.
No.
It's an arc. And so I guess my sense of a strategy is how do we plot that arc?
Yeah.
But what I really want to know is what you're thinking. What are you thinking, Patti?
Well, okay, I wanted to just make sure I'm clear on the strategy tactic thing. So I took from what you've said, both of you, that strategy means that we need to know what our specific accomplishments are that we want to achieve.
Yeah.
Except that's not really the strategy, right? The strategy is how do we win this?
Yeah.
But tactics is like the nuts and bolts.
Right.
And the how we do it is what you said about leverage points. I realize that's the point where strategy and tactics come together. So leverage, I'm literally thinking of like a teeter-totter, right? So, I mean, leverage means taking the people on one side of things, just enough of them to tip it so it falls to the other side, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
do
I mean,
it.
obviously that's like so theoretical and not...
We need a strategy.
Well, right. Okay, so I also related this might be stupid, but I related this to my witchy days and thinking a strategy.
So what you said, witchy days?
Witchy days, yes, when I was dabbling a bit in the dark arts. But a strategy is like setting your intention, right? And I found witchcraft type things to be very much of a beneficial psychodrama kind of thing, right? Where used as a self-development tool, it can be really useful. But it's in this format of you set an intention and the spell you do is kind of your tactics. Like it's a little bit of understanding the things that have to come in to play for this thing I want to have happen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're doing a spell.
Or what?
So we're doing a spell to get
and we've even got
Zenith
a theme
off
song.
that land.
It's a spell on you. Was that who sang that song?
Yeah.
But you know, and I want to take that just a slight bit. It's
That's
like
fine.
I'm going to.
We don't have to stay on that at all.
No, I am going to stay on that at all because I actually think that that's exactly what we want to do.
Well, yeah, everything we're talking about is a metaphor anyway.
Right.
And these metaphors have parallels.
And I love this one because I believe, Patti, we may have a disagreement here. I believe information is secondary. I think if good information were going to change our world, it would be changed because we have lots of good information.
That's true.
We
I
actually,
agree.
But what I really believe is how people change. I think art is one piece, but more importantly is how we, it's like who we are is more important than what we do. So one of the things I believe is incumbent upon us to do and which we try to do by introducing joy and play and fun into this struggle, is I think we need to be charismatic in a very limited sense, in that how we approach this work with joy and seriousness and intent, that's what people learn from. The energy that they feel from us is much more immediately transformative. It feels comfortable. It feels embracing. It feels supportive. So now if we can find a way to change the scale, but we have to change ourselves to do that. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, predecessor of speaking truth to goodness, is having the joy of your convictions. The courage of your convictions is very important, but it can be a little grim. So we have to have the joy as well. So in my mind, that's the invitation. The invitation is to see these people aren't crazy and, grim and death-dealing whatever. And I think we do a good job of that. So now I want to I think every time you name something, it gets clearer and more powerful. So we're speaking our own truth to our own power and to our own goodness. So we're a model. This podcast is a model in some ways of how I believe we need to engage these really crushing realities around us.
It occurs to me that what we're talking about and what we have been talking about through our previous discussions is more cultural change than political change, because we use words like joy and courage and fierceness, and we talk a lot about what it takes for people to act out of, I don't think any of us have said it this way before, but I think of it as acting out of the best parts of ourselves.
Yep.
And there's no particular political tactic to apply to that, or explicitly political. It's humanistic. It's learning how to build different kinds of relationships with each other and treat each other differently.
Absolutely.
And that's not all we have to do. We have to do the explicitly political stuff too. But if we're going to, including turning this economy around where we are degrowing, we're going to have to bring a different cultural ethic to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what, more than anything else, not exclusively, but more than anything else, that's what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, Patti, I cut you off again. I got excited. So it's a good quality with a negative outcome, because I really do care, because I think you think differently about all of this stuff than either of us do. Uh-huh. You bring a different. Well, don't give me that shrug.
Well, of course we're going to think differently.
And
that's
why
good.
Is that important?
It's good. We need all of the different ways of thinking about it.
So describe the ways in which Michaela and I are deficient.
It's not a deficiency problem.
It is a deficiency, Patti. It is a deficiency. Okay, let me say why I say that. And then I'm going to shut the fuck up. I'm sick of my own voice. It's like you represent a bridge culture. You are in your early 40s. Mm-hmm. The first, as you've told me, the first generation that was defined by technology in a significant way.
Yeah.
You were also actively engaged in youth culture. You have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. Mm-hmm. You understand things that Michaela and I, we don't, Michaela.
But you two
I don't disagree with you.
But you two understand.
You disagree with me?
I don't disagree.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, finally we have something to argue about.
But you two understand things that I couldn't possibly, and that my kids absolutely couldn't possibly. Right? I can look back and read history books but that's not the same thing, right? Because you understand what those leverage points for past work has been, and we've got to like identify those leverage points because some of them are the same, but I'm going to guess some of them are different.
Point, would you like to say something about that video you had us watch this week? Talking about different leverage points?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I sent the both of you a video that was an African-American woman who was a coder, and I forget what her other credentials were, but
Social media.
Okay, social media. Yeah, so she got involved in political action, but entirely through her skills as a technology person, and was able to create an app that would allow, what was it? Now, it's like 2 days ago, I can't remember that. To create an app that allowed her to, what was it, usurp something. It was like a comment section.
There was a comments.
Yeah, comments were being collected.
Section. There's 64 responses, which caused whatever body it was, City Council, to change.
Yeah.
Water board.
And,
I'm glad y'all remembered.
And 57 of them were generated out of the coding that she did that made it possible for people to do that. They would never have done that without this coding piece.
Right.
I don't even know what coding is. Sometimes I have a code in my nose. That happens sometimes.
Well, I have another example of that kind of thing where the younger generation is going, ha, 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 I see your technology you're using for that. I'm going to take charge of that. So I think was it the last presidential election, maybe? There was going to be a Trump rally somewhere. It had been advertised. It was a situation where they needed people to sign up online for a ticket that was free, but just to have numbers, I think, right? Well, some very savvy, young, progressively minded activists figured out, oh, so you mean we can just go on there and reserve a bunch of tickets? The Trump campaign was so excited. They were blabbering on in the media about having 1 million people coming to this thing or something. And then hardly anybody showed up because it was all these activists that had tricked them by reserving these tickets. So, I mean, that's like kind of a small example, but the way it spread for people to even know they could join in on this shenanigans, you know, because that's a civil disobedience action in some ways.
Yeah, well, it is.
Yeah. They use social media to spread, hey, go on over here and do that. And they fucked them up.
Michaela and I, I'm going to speak for both of us. We would never have thought of that. Duh.
Well, see, and so there's like a whole new pool of potential ways to fuck with things for the good.
Yeah, and that also points to a significant change in the culture of political activism.
Okay.
We didn't used to see certainly not at the same scale because we didn't have the media to do it at this scale. Just the kind of thing that you're just talking about, Patti, and that is tricking people.
Yeah.
Like I was part of an action a couple of months ago where some of us went to the Apple store and we downloaded this video that people in Argentina developed, a fake video made by the CEO of Apple. What's his name?
Tim Cook,
introducing a new phone that was going to be sustainable. This is the last new phone they were going to make, and from then on they were just going to make parts for people to repair their own phones.
Man.
You know, and we downloaded this. We went into the Apple store here in Seattle and downloaded that video onto all the phones they had displayed there.
Oh my God.
I didn't know you could do that in a store like that.
Right. And it was the whole thing about, it wasn't just producing this new sustainable product, but it was saying we're changing not only our business model, but our governing model. And we're going to invite all the people who are players in our system, including employees and users of our devices and people who are affected by the things we extract from the earth, and It was radical,
Subversive.
and tricky. And I shared this with my brother, who was a fine human being, but very mainstream, and he was really offended
Yep.
that we went in and the word he used
Oh,
was
my God.
manipulated people like that. And when I put that together with the suggestions from the people who responded to our retreat questions saying we need to be more disruptive, that's an example of disruption that we haven't had available to us as activists before this time period.
Right.
You know, but it raises important cultural, ethical questions, because if we're also about redefining how we treat each other as human beings,
Yes.
who all gets involved in that? Is Tim Cook one of the people that we should treat well? Are the other customers of Apple who want new phones every couple of years? I have a good friend who buys all their products as soon as they're out. You know, he's a good person, but he's gobbling up those resources and helping Apple extract all those minerals from the good earth. What do I say to him? How do I challenge his lifestyle, his practices?
Oh. That's tough.
It's
That's a
very
tough
tough.
question. I who know everything, oh wait, I don't know everything, have no idea how you deal with that. Because there are ethical questions. And yet, you know, so I'm going to jump back to the civil rights movement. I mean, I think there's something clean about the civil rights movement, right? It was a clear issue. It was a clear violation of people's humanity. And the resistance to it was violent and inhuman. Mm-hmm. So it was clear. And because the tactic was nonviolence, frankly, doesn't hurt, anybody. So it was clean. Our world is more complicated now. The issues are not as clear-cut and simple as they were.
Don't you think that's intentional? The water having been muddied?
Oh, some of it, yeah. I mean, it will definitely, whatever has caused that to happen. But what that means is, the whole thing about civil disobedience, absolutely necessary, but much more difficult to apply in this situation. One, because you don't have a whole community, the African American community, who, like it or not, are deeply invested in what's going on. So it's not just a few individuals trying to get people together to do something. And it's like why I love working with the farm workers. They have a community, it's intergenerational and all this amazing stuff. So it feels human. It's a human scale. Mm-hmm. This is not on a human scale. I'm not saying it's not a good tactic at all.
You mean the digital tactics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's...
Well, it's the new human scale.
So in other words, even the confrontations in the civil rights movement were people confronting people. Ideas were also, in combat, or I don't like that word, scratch that word. But, so I have learned through the intervention of, on my left, Patti Robron, and her children running wild and free, not in a negative way, in a very good way, that I don't understand this world at all. I can name it, I can identify it, but I have no experience with it, especially given my sort of life circumstances sort of taking me out of the main unmainstream for at least 10 years. So that's several generations of technological change. So if you talk about tactics and strategies, so then what supports these strategies? Well, understanding what you're talking about, understanding how your kids process information, which is completely different than how I did. I don't know, I mean, you were already partially corrupted, I guess, but it's like, so I'm happy to acknowledge that I feel that the core values that I represent and try to live out are in some ways timeless, and yet what they look like, how they're applied, how we encourage them, is in a world that I, frankly, would like to believe I understand, but I don't. I don't understand it. My gift is I appreciate that difference. In other words, I'm not resistant to it. I'm just kind of ignorant. I can live with that.
But see, then you can be a bridge too.
I want to be a bridge. I definitely, and I want to be I feel like what would we do with old people? I don't know what we do with old people, especially when we are old people, like me.
Well, so right now we're trying to figure out, or what you're getting into is kind of the idea of recognizing that we need to set a strategy, develop tactics, but we may be a little bit stuck because of the things that separate us. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So then we need to find strategies that make sense to everyone, no matter their age. Yes?
Or we have to have braided strategies
That's fine
that we
too.
can bring different elements into.
It occurs to me, Jerry, that the kind of connection that you value and are so good at and are promoting here is something that the downside of social media doesn't allow. And that is that the technology allows us to separate ourselves from the targets of our communication, like the Tim Cook fake video.
Right.
To the point where somebody like my brother feels manipulated by something like that. He's a person that I care deeply about. And I offended him just by telling him about that. He didn't receive the video, you know. And so how do we, this is where, you know, I raised the question of conflict resolution in our earlier email exchange. Our society and the world, in many ways, is more rife with conflict now than maybe any time in my life, even though there's been plenty all along. But, you know, and we haven't figured out how to deal with that. I mean, everything from having this conversation with my brother about Tim Cook's video and him feeling manipulated, to the war in Gaza. You know, we don't have answers for that. Okay, so part of the culture that we have to develop, it's not just a matter of outreach and listening and learning from each other. It's laying down our gauntlets, laying down our hatchets, laying down our guns, figurative or otherwise, and really trying to figure out how people like my brother, in particular, would like to see the world develop. And he's, you know, when we talk about the kind of world that we deserve, we're in complete agreement. But we're not in agreement at all about how to get there.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for joining us in this enlightening discussion on strategy and tactics in activism. From the necessity of emotional connections in our structures, to the critical examination of our actions and their alignment with our goals, we hope this episode empowers you to think strategically while acting tactically. Michaela's perspective on degrowth and our collective reflection on the role of human energy in activism underscore the need for thoughtful engagement in our movements. Remember to keep engaging with us through comments, subscribe for more insights, and follow us on Instagram to stay connected. Let's keep speaking truth to goodness.